Barry Sloane, your show 6 just wrapped up on the History Channel. Tell us a little bit about the show for people who have not seen it yet.
Well, it's a show that's based around the Navy Special Warfare Group, DevGRU, or as it's known more commonly in the media, SEAL Team 6. It's based around the members of that team, not only on the missions that they go on, but also the home life, the cost of war to everybody involved, really, on all sides.
And you play Joe Bear Graves. Tell us a little bit about your character.
Joe is the newly appointed team leader of White Squadron due to Walton Goggins' character having left the team. Joe is a religious man. He has a wife and a recently bereaved father, and so we take up his story at a tough point in his life as to how he can maintain the leadership and the strength needed to do this job with the weight on his shoulders, and let me see if we can cope with that. And also in the first episode, you'll see a very judgmental call. Within the first 20 minutes of the pilot, all of your lead heroes, if you will, are implicated war criminals. So there's that.
So I'm curious about what kind of research you did in order to prepare for this part.
Well, quite aside from a number of books that I'll speak about in a moment, the producers, as preparatory course, if you will, for this, sent us to physical training, a place called SEAL Fit in Encinitas, California. And it's kind of like a SEAL prep school. It's kind of like you go there to see if you can do what these guys do, obviously on a very small scale, but that's difficult enough. So physically, you have to be in a certain physical capacity for the role. But then this was more of a mental drilling and education and bonding with the guys in the team. Unlike anything I've experienced before in any walk of life, to be honest, it kind of surpassed the show and became much more of a growth thing outside of anything. I read a wonderful book called What It's Like to Go to War by Carl Malantes. He's a Vietnam veteran. He's got some really interesting ideas on how we should educate soldiers both before they enter the battlefield and when they come home, due to his experiences as a vet, and a number of other wonderful pieces of literature as well. Too many to name, really. I mean, it's all out there. But one of the main things we had, which is great, is we had 3 members of DevGRU who no longer serving, but had over 60 years experience between them. The one who named himself would be Mitchell Hall. He's our technical advisor, and he worked on Zero Dark 30 and the Call of Duty video games and Lone Survivor. And his level of commitment and wanting us to represent his community correctly was second to none, and he made sure that every box was ticked in that regard.
You mentioned the tight-knit group.
Yeah.
And I wonder if you could just talk a bit more about that and how you guys worked as an ensemble.
Well, within the first 18 hours of our training at SEAL Fit, we'd kind of broken past egos, which I think really helped. And at this stage in all of our careers, there's really no place for it, to be honest, especially in an ensemble piece. We were hired because they wanted a solid group of actors who could hold the weight of what these storylines are going to be. So there was no overly inflated egos. I mean, I'll speak personally for myself. I mean, I had the joy of working with a wonderful actor called Mark Rylance, who had absolutely no ego to speak of whatsoever. And I said to myself from that point on in my career, if that man can go to any job without an ego, how dare anybody take one with them, to be fair. So, but we were very good friends by the time we started shooting because of that experience. I mean, I'd never kind of exposed myself. That sounds wrong. I'd never kind of broken in that way in front of strangers, effectively, within such a short space of time, and likewise for them with me. And so when you've seen someone's true colours, truthfully, and you've got past the male bravado that can sometimes be there in everyday life, it was very, very simple. And when you look into these guys' eyes, it was as if we knew each other and we'd shared a form of collective trauma. And when you've done that, I think it's very apparent in what you see on screen.
Well, yeah, I mean, you guys are put into some pretty dramatic situations, not just physically, but emotionally as well. I mean, how do you get yourself into that mind space before a scene?
Well, we were kind of sat in it and embodying it for a while. I mean, we were, you know, I was away from my family in North Carolina where we were filming. And I was, you know, with being, you know, high up in the story, I was very rarely away from set. So I was 95% of the time in camos, in some form of war footing, or reading about it, or learning the lines about it, or watching footage of it, or listening to music based on it. So, you know, with every character I do, I try and, you know, live in it for as long as possible. But this was you just couldn't. You didn't really have a choice with this. It was surrounded, and when we weren't filming, we were on the gun range and working with the guys technically, because obviously our level of proficiency is, you know, these aren't just soldiers. These are the very, very elite of the U.S. military. So, you know, you can train a bunch of actors to do Saving Private Ryan and walk around with a rifle, and, you know, these were enlisted men, but these guys are the, you know, any operators watching the show know the tactical level that we need to be at. So they were on us the whole time, and, you know, we're not there yet, but we'll get there.
And you guys worked with some really top-notch directors on this show. Leslie Lincoln Glatter, who's also an executive producer, Clark Johnson, Kimberly Pierce, Alex Graves, on and on and on. What did they give you that helped you guys?
Well, to start off with, when I was first taking my meetings about playing Joe, you know, the moment that Leslie was confirmed producer-director, I thought to tell this story through a female's eye was just the icing on the cake for me. And it was like, okay, let's go. They set the scene. She set the scene both at home and on the battlefield, just in the way she works. She's incredible, and the kind of set that she runs and the respect she commands from everybody involved. I mean, her body of work speaks for itself. And then she brought on Kim Pierce, who, for my money, directed the best episode of the season, in episode 3. I thought the heart within it was incredible. Her attention to all of our performances. You know, she'd have a dossier based on what our arc should be and what beats we needed to hit and what story we were telling. She was wonderful. She's a real auteur in that sense. You know, she reminded me of, I worked with Mark Romanek a while back, and he was very much, you know, he sees the color he wants to paint with, and if he hasn't got it, you better fucking find it. You know what I mean? So it was kind of like that, which was wonderful. Alex Graves, that you mentioned, just absolutely, with the time he had to shoot that finale, unreal. I mean, I know he's done a fair few Game of Thrones, which helps, but yeah, we were blessed. Clark Johnson, wonderful director. I mean, everyone, to be honest, everyone's pedigree was unparalleled. And I think with the nature of this show, I think, you know, people want to be involved, and I expect a longer line for season 2, to be honest. So that's good.
Well, you know, I was going to ask if you guys are working on season 2 right now, or
we're in prep. I mean, the producers are up in Vancouver, starting their task. I'm in Santa Fe working on something else. As we actors do, we flip between a million things, and they stay locked into the same world for a little while. So I finish up here at the end of the month, about the 29th, and then head up to Vancouver about the 31st, and then we are starting our training again for 14 days. So that's going to be fun. We've not been given too many details yet, but I know it's going to be an experience. And then once we finish with the boot camp training again, we'll kick into production. And I've heard that episode 201 is a monster, is what I've heard. So it's going to be interesting.
Good luck with that. You've done film and television. I wonder, being able to play a character for, it was 8 episodes this season. I'm not quite sure how many episodes you guys have got next season, but being able to develop a character for that length of time, what is that experience like? Well,
really, I mean, you know, this is bandied about all too often at the moment, but, you know, it is where the best tales are being told at the moment. And, you know, I've had the privilege of sitting with a few guys and seeing them grow through episodic television. And, you know, one of the best things about this show and the writers is they're very organic. And so where they started off season 1, episode 1, they just witnessed a lot of what we went through in training. A lot of the stuff was written through character traits that surfaced there, and they kind of, you know, evolved with us. So it's been a very symbiotic relationship between us and the writers, and I think that's going to continue. So, you know, it's nice to live the moment without necessarily playing the arc every second, because you just don't know exactly where it's going to go, you know. It's nice.
Was there a moment from this past season that stands out to you as being particularly challenging, or represents your character very well? What was some of the highlights from this past season for you?
Some of the highlights, I mean, there was one of my favorite scenes to film, I guess, there was 2 scenes. One with Brianne, where Joe breaks, literally breaks a crib, but also for the first time, I felt we could see a damaged boy or a younger man, the guy he was before he went to war, surface for a second and ask for help, and he very, very quickly, you know, bolted that door shut and added extra locks, and you know, to see what these guys carry and the fact that they don't break very often was an incredible, and Gam was fantastic in that scene. Also, we had recasting issues due to Joe's problems at the beginning. So I'd never had the chance to film the same scene on camera with 2 different actors. So doing one of the early scenes when Rip sets up the first night mission in episode 1, we shot that exact same scene with both Joe and Walton. So that's a standout to me in the fact that I got to play obviously 2 different actors and see what different actors do with different words. So that was a fascinating experience as well. Also enjoyed the Black Hawk stuff in episode 8 with the rest of the team. That was amazing.
You guys do a very good job of representing the lives of these soldiers. I wonder if you could talk a bit about how you guys go about capturing the authenticity of these situations. I mean, do you have like consultants on set, or I mean, how do you capture the real nitty-gritty details?
Well, as I mentioned earlier, you know, we had 3 members of Death Group, so the tactics are locked by those guys. So we don't go into a mission just like the director. Oh, it'll look nice if we have a bang over there, and if you can shoot 2 guys there, that'll look really cool. You know, it's like, it's tactical, and it's how it would happen, and it's messy, and we try to make it feel as messy as possible. You know, which served both ways. I mean, it served reality, but also served the budget. So we didn't have to just, you know, you can't compete with Saving Private Ryan. So you got to get feet on the ground and get close into the minds of these guys. They were great. We trained mission specific. So episode 2, we had a boat boarding mission, and we spent about 2 weeks just going around the battleship in North Carolina and kind of going down the stairwells in the dark and trying to do it with the nods on and doing it in day and do it in night and find our footing. And then the stuff in the jungle we did a different way. And then we trained with the Black Hawks and hanging out of helicopters and things like this. I mean, it's an incredible experience, and I can only foresee more of that in the future. So it's going to be fun.
And what do they think when they see the show? I mean, do you have people come up to you and say, "This is just like what it's really like"? Or
I think. I mean, I can't speak. Well, I can't speak for any veterans because I'm an actor. But I feel like you'll never truly capture what war is for those guys. I don't think you can ever truthfully show it. I think you can try and get close and honor it and be respectful, and that's something that I've heard from veterans, not just naval veterans, but across all the special forces communities and the armies, and we've had a great response. You know, I said before I did this, if I had one veteran say I'd done a good job, I'd be happy, and I've had numerous. So I've got to be thankful for that. And a friend of mine who actually serves in the he's now a private contractor in Iraq, but he said it's very close to the bone, especially the home stuff. the home life. You know, he knows this stuff goes on. And so that was nice to hear from him as well, because, you know, he tends to not enjoy watching military stuff because it's, you know, poor usually. And there's a lot of other SEAL shows coming out. So I think what's, you know, I'd like to speak before I see anything, but I'm pretty confident what will separate us is that authenticity and the fact that we're sticking true to that and not going for the gun porn version, you know.
Well, it's a great show. I look forward to season 2. Barry, Sloane, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Pleasure.
You're welcome.